Good evening, Thank Football. It's Friday. Ade Oladipo alongside broadcaster Flex. We are talking England's squad. Thomas Tuchel announced his England squad this morning. I think it's fair to say the reaction has been very, very interesting. Ahead of Thomas Tuchel's first England game as manager, Adrian Durham tracks his journey from youth coach in rural Bavaria to master tactician and Free Lions boss in an exclusive documentary. Join Adrian and a host of voices who have the inside track on the German coach and Tuchel's revolution from 8 o'clock on Tuesday night, right here on talkSPORT. You know, one of the interesting things I think regarding this England squad that not a lot of people are talking about is the introduction of Dan Burn.
Yes.
Who I think's almost been a revelation to be a 6'7" left back. No one seems to be talking too much about Dan Burn, but I almost feel like he's fully deserving of a call-up. Whether or not he gets the chance to actually start these games is another thing, but I think for what he's done with Newcastle, he's been there for so long when they've kind of been up and down, relegation, Champions League, I think he deserves it.
Mate, I think you think back to the game against PSG, right?
Good shout,
he scored in that, and that was just almost like this full circle moment for Dan Burn of like a player that, you know, obviously so huge in stature. When you see him as a left back, you think, massive for a left back. Doesn't look quite right. Really tall, gangly, but he's a good player. It's as simple as that. He's a good footballer, and he understands the game. He's dependable. Of course, with his size, that comes with obvious positive attributes. But he's more than that. He's more than, you know, some big lump that you just have there to just stop people getting by. He's good. He's decent on the ball. He understands the game, and he's dependable. And I just think that players like him don't often get the shine that they deserve in the period when they're playing well. You know, will he make the squad in the end of the day? Probably not when players get back. I don't think so. I do think there's a couple of unlucky ones not to be in there as well. I'm looking at the likes of Jared Braithwaite. I think that's probably a better option. But Dan Burn can play left back. He's adaptable. He can play wing back. He can play left centre back. So you know, Thomas Tuchel's looking at that. And last time I checked, Newcastle, he's doing pretty well at Newcastle.
Yeah,
so.
And you know, you look at the squad, and one thing that's obvious: physically, they look big.
Yes,
physically, it's a strong squad, isn't it? And I almost feel like Thomas Tuchel's got that in the back of his mind as well. All right, let's go to the phone lines. Remember, we are talking England squad at the moment. 03717 22 3344. Brooke, Arsenal fan, has got in touch. Brooke, what do you make of this England squad?
Yeah, evening, gents. You all right?
Evening, mate.
Evening, man.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That I was really excited when Tuchel got the job. You know, given all those years with Southgate and obviously what he'd done, but we never ever looked like we were going to cross the finishing line. But with this squad, there's just a few that I really can't understand. You just touched on Braithwaite there. I don't know what he has to do to get into the squad. Completely agree with Dan Burn being in there. But what's Quansah done ahead of Braithwaite to get in that squad?
Yeah, agreed.
Not enough is the answer.
Nowhere near enough.
Yeah.
No, nowhere near enough. And then I'd look at, you know, and it might be controversial, but Phil Foden stunk the place out of the Euros and has done nothing all season. And then you've got Morgan Gibbs-White, who's dragged Forest up to Champions League football, had a phenomenal year. What does he have to do?
Do you know what it is, Brooke? This is a classic because that's what I'm saying. Because Thomas Tuchel's not here for long, I feel like which is listen, it's not the fairest, but I don't think he's on this whole I want to develop some guys and see that. No, I do have certain name brand players. I just think that's how he thinks because he's not here for long.
I completely understand that. So then if you're not here for long and you've got to get it right in a short period of time, you can't have passengers. Phil Foden right now is a passenger. You need players on form. If you're looking at a short-term project, who's going to perform well for you now? And Morgan Gibbs-White is doing that, and Phil Foden's nowhere near it.
No, he's right. He's right.
Yeah.
Brooke, great call. Honestly, he's correct. Morgan Gibbs-White. If you're Morgan Gibbs-White and you think, 1 second, what do I have to do then? Obviously, look, Jude's there. We know Jude's there. Cole Palmer's hot and cold. Very hot at the start, very cold right now. Morgan Gibbs-White has been fantastic all season. He's been almost a catalyst for where Nottingham Forest are, and look what Nottingham Forest are doing. If you can't get into the England squad, a new England squad now, based off this form and the form of Phil Foden, you're never getting in.
No, it just shows how hard it is, and how many times did we say we want Gareth Southgate to pick players on merit, pick players on form, to actually when he done his last tournament we went, oof, wow, he actually has. There were some surprise inclusions in there, but I don't know, I just think the type of manager that Thomas Tuchel is and the scrutiny that's on him, and look, Brooke's right, I know you need to pick players.
Do you look at Gibbs-White as an 8 or a 10?
10.
10. Okay,
absolutely a 10.
That's the thing.
And also,
I think that might be the problem because Phil Foden can play a couple of positions.
He can play a couple, but not just that as well, right? again, I know I keep talking about the best versions of, and they might not be it right now, but Morgan Gibbs-White, the way he plays his football at Forest is they sit in deep, they surrender possession, and they go in the transition. They power through. If Thomas Tuchel doesn't envision this England team playing like that, it's a difficult one.
You're not going to be in. And let's be honest, again, it is Cole Palmer, it's Phil Foden, it's Jude Bellingham.
Exactly.
All right, phone lines are open, 03717 22 3344. When we come back, we're going to talk about Arsenal right back Ben White not being in the squad. All right, let's continue our conversation about the England squad. Ben White has been an interesting topic of conversation when it comes to England for the last few years. Obviously, looked like he ruled himself out of being anything with regards to an England player, and now he's kind of said, I'm back in. He has had his injuries. He's sort of been up and down when it comes to injuries so far this season, and according to Thomas Tuchel, that's the only reason why Ben White wasn't in this squad.
He loves to be back in the squad. I just think it's a bit too early now from him, given the seriousness of the injury that he had. I'm delighted that he's back. He's back now in back-to-back trainings. So we were monitoring the process, and a huge compliment to the medical and performance department of the FA, and thanks to everyone at Arsenal to let us monitor closely. So we're on it. I was speaking to him, was speaking to Ben, that we're delighted that he's back on the bench. He had a Champions League match now in the second leg, and I think now it's just a question about getting more minutes, getting more rhythm, and then he has every chance to be back, and he wants to be back, is glad to be back.
Yeah, well, look, it sounds there from the England manager that if Ben White was fully fit, and I mean, sort of playing back-to-back games, he would have been there. If everyone is fully fit, though, I mean, look, he's picked Kyle Walker in the squad. Trent's obviously going to be there. Reece James has been picked. Thank God he's fit again, because I think when he's on form, he's probably the best right back. Does Ben White even get a game?
Probably not. Probably not. And that's not because he's a bad player. That's not because actually a different style of manager or somebody wanted to play in a different way maybe could easily pick Ben White. I think he's a really good right back. I like Ben White. I think he's versatile. I think he's quick. I think he's strong. Yeah, very good on the ball. In when Arsenal were in their pomp, which they obviously haven't had that connection for a while because he's been out. Yeah, that back four solid. And that connection on the right hand side with Saka and Ben White caused some serious damage. Let's not forget. Trent's just too good. Yeah. and Kyle Walker, I think before this dip in his career where he's now got a move, was looking like he was sort of on a decline.
Almost looked like it was the end.
Yeah, you know the Kyle Walker cheat code of pace, like
it went.
Yeah, it felt like just that yard. But he's gone off to AC Milan. He's still, he's 34 years of age now. I think he's still very experienced, and he's someone, when you're talking about trying to keep standards high and just keep training high, and in some of the bigger moments, bigger games, you still take him in this moment. And then, like I said, Reece James is the biggest problem. Just cannot stay fit. Yeah.
If he can, hopefully he can stay fit. Number one right back.
He could be, and other positions as well.
Yeah, I think he really is good.
But yeah, Ben White. Would you just sorry, Ade, with Ben White? Yeah. Now he's available again. Yeah. There's some people sort of saying, if you turn your back on the country, no.
The man that normally sits in your seat would be raging. Just the idea of Ben White.
Ben White is the antithesis. Of football. Yeah. That should not happen.
That's what Rory would say. Rory, and to an extent,
and now he's been lauded like some martyr. Yeah. And he's not.
And I normally disagree with Rory, but he's got a point.
What do you think on this?
He's got a point. You can't turn your back on the country and all of a sudden then decide, okay, I'm ready to play now, boy.
But what about, I heard Bentley talking about this. It's like, if you feel like you've been disrespected by a particular person and you don't get on with that person, you say, it's not the country. I love my country. Whilst you're here, we can't work together.
You know how many week in, week out players must have issues with their managers and fellow players? Well, they stop playing club football?
Do you think it shows weak mentality?
You said it.
On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.